Hi everyone! Welcome to our new audiobook, My Fated Mate is My Adoptive Brother. I really appreciate it if you could subscribe or liked the video. It helps me a lot. The novel of the same name is also available on Amazon Kindle. If you enjoy this book, please support the author's work by clicking the link below. Now, let's start.
Chapter 1: Broken Engagement. Scarlett's POV. I stood motionless in front of the boutique's full-length mirror, watching the saleswoman fuss over my hair. Her nimble fingers curled a few strands of my auburn hair while another assistant made the final adjustments to my ceremonial robe. "You look absolutely breathtaking, Miss Winters," the saleswoman gushed, stepping back to admire her work. The robe was objectively beautiful white silk with diamonds meticulously sewn along the neckline and sleeves, catching the light with every slight movement. It draped over my figure perfectly, as it should for the astronomical price the Winters pack had paid for it. But all I felt was the fabric tightening around me like shackles. "Is something wrong with the fit?" the assistant asked, noticing my discomfort. "It's fine," I replied automatically, the lie sliding easily from my lips after years of practice. My emerald eyes stared back at me in the mirror, betraying none of the turmoil inside. This bonding ceremony was meant to symbolize my union with Alexander Amber, the alpha heir to the Northern Territories. A strategic alliance between the Northern and Winters packs sealed through mating bonds. Politics wrapped in white silk and diamonds. I couldn't help but think of another man tall, with piercing blue eyes that seemed to see through all my defenses. Roman, my foster brother, who used to keep me warm when I was cold and care for me when I was abandoned. And the man I could never have, I thought grimly, wondering how he was doing now. My phone buzzed in my purse, temporarily freeing me from my thoughts. "I need to take this," I told the saleswoman, stepping away from her hands. Emma's name flashed across the screen. My best friend rarely called during working hours at the treatment center, so I immediately answered. "Emma? What's wrong?" Her voice came through breathless and urgent. "Scarlett, you won't believe this. I just saw Alexander and Grace at the treatment center." My spine stiffened. "Grace is back from Europe." "Yes, but that's not all. They were at the OBGYN and Grace seemed." Emma hesitated, then pushed forward. "Scarlett, she's pregnant with his child." I heard them discussing it. The world around me grew silent. The boutique, with its expensive fabrics and glittering accessories, faded from my awareness. Emma's words pierced through my heart like a silver dagger. "Are you sure?" My voice sounded distant to my own ears. "Positive. I'm so sorry, Scarlett. I thought you should know before. Thank you for telling me." I cut her off, not wanting to hear more. I hung up and stood perfectly still for exactly 3 seconds. Then, with deliberate movements, I reached for the clasps of the ceremonial robe. "Miss Winters, we still need to finalize that." I tore the robe off my body, not caring about the delicate stitching or precious stones. The fabric made a satisfying ripping sound as I pulled it free and threw it to the floor. The saleswoman gasped. "Miss Winters, that robe is worth. Bill it to Alexander Amber," I said coldly, already pulling on my regular clothes. "He can afford it." My phone rang again. Alexander's name flashed on the screen. I answered, not bothering with pleasantries. "What?" His voice came through, commanding and haughty as always. "My office. Now. Is that an order, Alexander?" I asked sweetly, venom lacing my tone. "Don't test me today, Scarlett. Just get here." He hung up. A sneer formed at the corner of my mouth as I stared at the phone. Inside my head, my wolf core growled with rage. "He dares to command us," she snarled, "after betraying our trust? And not for much longer," I promised her silently. I gathered my belongings. I was the only feeling, leaving the ruined ceremonial robe in a heap on the boutique floor. The diamond-studded fabric looked like scattered stars against the dark carpet, a fitting metaphor for my shattered engagement. As I drove to Alexander's office, Cora continued to pace angrily in my mind. "We were never fated mates," she reminded me, her fury building. "Just a political match. We agreed to this union for the benefit of the Winters pack, and now he's betrayed us with Grace." I said aloud, gripping the steering wheel tighter. "My adopted sister. That bitch. Grace Winters. Aguas Winters." My adopted sister, the daughter of the alpha who replaced me for so many years, was sent to Europe 3 years ago. She's the one Alexander always dreamed of marrying. Today, we end this farce, I told Cora firmly. Half an hour later, I strode through the Amber Pack's main building, my heels clicking purposefully against the marble floor. Pack members scurried out of my path, sensing my barely controlled rage. Alexander's assistant jumped to her feet when I approached. "Miss Winters, he's expecting you." But I pushed past her, throwing open his office door without knocking. Alexander sat reclined behind his massive oak desk, looking every bit the arrogant alpha heir he was. His black hair was perfectly styled, his expensive suit immaculate. The office reeked of his signature cologne, mixed with something else, cigarette smoke. "Scarlet, you're late," he began, condescension dripping from every word. I remained silent, closing the door behind me. Alexander reached for a cigarette, lighting it despite knowing how much I detested the smell. A small but deliberate show of disrespect. "Grace is back," he continued, exhaling smoke in my direction. "She's sick with silver poisoning and she needs me." I arched an eyebrow. "Silver poisoning? How unfortunate." "It's serious," Alexander snapped. "She requires constant care." He pushed a document on his desk at me. "I suggest postponing our partner bonding ceremony. Grace's condition requires my full attention." "Of course, this is only a stopgap measure." I approached his desk slowly, eyeing the postponement papers. With deliberate calm, I picked them up, examining the contents briefly. "Postponement." My voice was as cold as winter frost. I tore the papers in half, then quarters, letting the pieces flutter onto his desk. Alexander's eyes widened. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" "It's not necessary," I said, stepping closer until my hands rested on his desk. "Let's just break off the engagement now. Have you lost your mind?" Alexander stood abruptly, his chair rolling back. "This union has been planned for years. Our packs will survive." I cut in, and I'm thinking more clearly than I have in months. Alexander's face darkened with anger. "You're talking crazy. This is about Grace, isn't it? You've always been jealous of her." A laugh escaped me, sharpened without humor. "Jealous? Of your pregnant mistress? I think not." The color rained from Alexander's face. "Who told you?" "It doesn't matter," I interrupted. "What matters is that you're a liar and a cheat." "Alexander, did you think I wouldn't find out?" He recovered quickly, his jaw setting in that stubborn way I'd come to despise. "Get out. Go cool off somewhere and think about what you're throwing away." There's nothing to think about, I replied. "We're done." I turned toward the door, feeling lighter with each step. Behind me, Alexander called out, "This isn't over. Scarlet, you can't just walk away from this arrangement." I paused with my hand on the doorknob, looking over my shoulder. "Watch me." I slammed the door behind me, the sound echoing through the hallway. Several secretaries stood in the corridor, pretending to work but obviously eavesdropping. As I walked past, their whispers reached my sensitive ears. I knew she couldn't keep him satisfied. Grace has always been his true choice for Luna. No wonder he strayed. "Have you seen her Emperor?" Winter's pack would prefer to have their biological daughters join in marriage, but everyone knows that Alexander only wants Grace. I stopped walking. The whispering immediately ceased as they realized I had heard everything. Slowly, I turned to face them. The wolves lowered their gazes, but I could still sense their disdain. One female secretary, Melissa, I recalled, seemed particularly smug, a small smile playing at her lips. I walked over to her. Melissa tried to back away, but I was faster. I reached out and cupped her chin, forcing her to meet my gaze. My voice was low and deadly. "You can make fun of me all you want here, but don't forget that your alphas aren't the only ones with teeth." I slapped her face dismissively, then let my fingers trail along the veins in her neck, a subtle threat that even the dimmest wolf couldn't misinterpret. Melissa trembled, her earlier bravado evaporating. I released her and straightened my spine, holding my head high as I walked away. Each wolf I passed bowed their head instinctively, the sound of my heels on marble the only noise in the now silent corridor. I had nothing to fear. I had nothing to lose. It was time to go to my office, gather my belongings, and begin the next chapter of my life. As for Alexander, the dumbass, I'd only feeling I had left of my hands. Tell him to fuck off. Chapter 2, Severing Ties. Scarlett's POV. I walked into my office and slammed the door so hard the frame rattled. The sound echoed in the small space, thundering against my heartbeat. That arrogant, cheating bastard. Cora snarled inside my head. I felt my fingernails elongate into razor-sharp wolf claws. The transformation unstoppable as rage coursed through my veins. With a swift, violent motion, I dragged my claws across the ornate mahogany desk, leaving deep gouges in the expensive wood. The destruction felt good, necessary. He thinks he can just postpone our ceremony like it's some inconvenient business meeting. Cora continued, hurt, irate, and smoking in his office when he knows you hate it, deliberately disrespecting us. I took several deep breaths, trying to calm my wolf. The last thing I needed was to shift in the middle of the Amber Pack headquarters. I know, Cora, I whispered aloud, but we're free now. My wolf huffed, still restless beneath my skin. We were never meant to be with him anyway. Not our fated mate. Never was. She was right. From the beginning, Cora had resisted the arranged marriage. She fought me every step of the way, making it clear that Alexander wasn't meant for us. Wolves know their true mates instinctively, and Alexander had never triggered that recognition. I moved to the bookshelf, pulling down the few personal items I kept in this office: a photo of Annie and me at graduation, a small carved wolf that Roman had given me years ago, a few reference books on herbal medicine I couldn't risk leaving behind. Good, Cora approved as I began emptying the desk drawers. Leave nothing behind. I was halfway through packing when the door burst open without warning. Alexander stood in the doorway, his eyes widening slightly as he took in the sight of me gathering my belongings. The scratches on the desk didn't escape his notice either. "What the hell are you doing?" he demanded, closing the door behind him. I didn't bother looking up. "What does it look like?" Alexander approached the desk slowly, his expression shifting from anger to forced composure. He straightened his tie, a nervous habit I'd noticed over our 2 years of engagement. "Scarlett, stop this nonsense," he said, his tone attempting authority. "Grace isn't feeling well. She needs me by her side. The marking ceremony is only temporarily postponed." With practiced ease, he withdrew a cigarette from his pocket and lit it, the acrid smoke curling upward. Another deliberate provocation. He knew how much I hated the smell. I stepped around the desk, perfectly calm on the outside while Cora surged with icy fury beneath my skin. This unnatural stillness was more dangerous than any outburst. Uncomfortable. My voice cut through the air, each word laced with spite. Alexander exhaled smoke, watching me through narrowed eyes. "Not pregnant," I added, my question crackling with dominance and accusation. The cigarette froze halfway to his mouth. For a split second, genuine shock registered on his face before his features hardened into a mask of anger. "Who told you that?" he growled, taking a threatening step toward me. I had no intention of dancing around his lies anymore. "Alexander, can't you be honest for once? It's not like the treatment center is a private place. Everyone knows that the OB/GYN isn't where you go to treat silver poisoning." His face flushed with anger, the vein in his temple pulsing visibly. "Don't slander us," he snarled. "It's just that there's something special about where she was poisoned." His voice dropped to a low, dangerous rumble as he unleashed his alpha power. The energy rolled through the room like a physical wave, designed to overwhelm me, to force submission. It washed over me ineffectively. What Alexander didn't know, what almost no one knew, was that I was immune to alpha commands. No alpha power could force me to submit, not since I was 13 years old. Normally, to avoid trouble, I'd pretend to be as oppressed by his power as anyone else. But today I didn't want to pretend anymore. I looked at him with undisguised contempt. "So what, Alexander? We both understand that you won't let go of her." "That's not true," he protested sharply. "When she recovers, I will." My cold laugh cut him off mid-sentence. "You will what?" "Send her away. Place her elsewhere. And then I shall thankfully ask you to mark me." I refused to let him finish, my eyes flashing with anger as I bared my teeth, my claws extended fully, catching the light. "Honestly, I don't care about this marriage. And I don't care about you." I spat, venom in every word. We were a political match to begin with. So this is the end of it. You go back to Grace. The words fell like stones in a silent room. Alexander stared at me, disbelief mingling with his anger. He was increasing his alpha power, his confusion growing as it failed to silence me or bring me to my knees. You can't just walk away from this. He started, but I was already moving past him. In one swift motion, I reached out and yanked the cigarette from between his lips. And by the way, I added, crushing the cigarette between my fingers. Don't smoke in front of me, you stupid ass. I've put up with you for far too long. I tossed the mangled cigarette into the trash and grabbed my bag of belongings. Alexander grabbed my arm, his grip tight. It's not over. Scarlet, you think it's over? Your pack needs our union. I stared at his hand and shook him off as hard as I could. That would require my dear parents to find another solution. I'm not their solution anymore. Without another word, I strode toward the door, leaving him standing in my former office. The hallway outside was bustling with activity, though it quieted noticeably as I emerged. Neither of us had curbed our voices earlier, and it was obvious that they had all heard the content of our argument. I was nearly to the elevators when Melissa stepped directly into my path. The same secretary who had mocked me earlier now stood with her chin raised, false confidence in her stance. "Miss Winters," she said loudly enough for others to hear. "You can't just walk away. You can't be disrespectful to the heir to the Alpha King like this." I laughed dismissively, the sound echoing in the suddenly quiet hallway. "He's your alpha, not mine. Get out of my way." Melissa didn't budge. Instead, she crossed her arms and continued. "This is why you're not fit to be Luna. A true Luna would be gentle, generous, and generous, would care for all pack members." Several onlookers nodded in agreement. It was the only feeling I have left as my hairs, emboldened by Melissa's public challenge. "Unlike Grace," someone murmured from the side. "She has a natural grace about her." Chorus snarled in my mind. "Show them what happens when they block our path." Without warning, I raised my foot and struck Melissa quickly indirectly in the crook of her knee. The precise blow caused her leg to collapse immediately, and she fell straight to her knees, letting out a startled gasp. "I told you to get out of my way," I said calmly, looking down at her. "You think I'm happy to be his Luna? Ridiculous." I raised my eyes to scan the office area, making eye contact with each wolf who dared to meet my gaze. Most looked away quickly. "I suggest you all work hard and mind your own business," I announced to the room. "Your alpha have plenty of problems to solve without you adding to them." Without waiting for a response, I stepped around Melissa's kneeling form and continued toward the front doors. No one else tried to stop me. As I pushed through the heavy glass doors into the afternoon sunlight, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. The air smelled sweeter. The colors around me seemed brighter. For the first time in months, possibly years, I was making my own choice. Freedom, Cora purred in satisfaction. Finally, I nodded in silent agreement as I walked to my car. The engagement that was weighing me down like a shackle was finally broken, though I knew it wasn't going to end that easily. Chapter 3: Confrontations. Scarlet's POV. I stretched and was enjoying the free sunshine when a familiar sleek black SUV pulled up in front of me. The tinted windows rolled down to reveal Jason Reed, Alexandria's beta, sitting behind the wheel. My stomach clenched as the passenger door opened. Grace Winters stepped out, moving with a deliberately fragile grace that made my teeth ache. Despite her supposed silver poisoning, she looked immaculate, her platinum blonde hair cascaded in perfect waves, her designer outfit complementing her willowy figure. The pack members in the yard froze, their attention instantly captured by her arrival. It was like watching moths drawn to a flame. "Grace," one of the office staff called out, rushing forward. "You're back from Europe." Grace's pale blue eyes sparkled with pure joy. "I'm back, darling. I'm back, darling. I missed you all," she cooed, her voice sweet as syrup. From her oversized purse, she began producing beautifully wrapped packages, handing them out to every wolf who approached. "Just a few trinkets from my travels," she said modestly, though the packages were clearly expensive. I curled my lip in disgust as I watched their eager reactions. Pack members who had just witnessed my confrontation with Alexander were now fawning over Grace, like she was already their Luna. Always the same performance. Cora growled within me, the fragile princess bestowing gifts upon her adoring subjects. This wasn't the first time I'd witnessed this scene. Even during my engagement to Alexander, the pack had made it abundantly clear who they preferred as their future Luna. Grace had been groomed for the role her entire life, or rather, my entire life, since she had taken my place in the Winter's pack. This is not without irony for me. In this drama of real and fake princesses, an attack on my birth pack by hoodlums resulted in the babies being switched. Grace was the fake princess who was raised as the baby daughter of Chief Winters, while I, the real princess, was left at the orphanage. If it hadn't been for Roman and Mom, my mood dimmed. Grace spotted me watching and altered her path to approach me directly. Her steps were calculated just weak enough to garner sympathy, but not so weak as to appear truly ill. "Scarlet, my dear sister," she called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. "It's been so long." She extended her arms as if expecting a hug, a beautifully wrapped box of chocolates in her hand. "Here's a gift I brought you from Europe." I remained motionless, refusing to play into her charade. Grace dropped her arms but maintained her sweet smile, though her eyes hardened slightly. "Alexander just told me you misunderstood," she said sweetly, a look of pain laced in her fragile tone. "I came over here specifically to explain it to you, to make sure that everything between us remains harmonious." I pushed her outstretched hand away, not bothering to hide my contempt. "Harmony," I replied coldly. "Have we ever been in harmony? You mean this harmony where you hurt me behind my back while playing the victim in his eyes?" Grace blinked rapidly, feigning surprise at my hostility. She glanced around, ensuring we had an audience, before leaning in close. "Maybe Alexander understands who he really wants. It was the only feel he wants," she murmured, her breath hot against my ear. The familiar scent of her perfume, the same one she'd worn 3 years ago when she'd orchestrated the attack that nearly killed me, filled my nostrils. Something in me snapped. I didn't give Grace time to continue her little performance. My hand shot out, gripping her wrist like an iron vice. I could feel her pulse racing beneath my fingers. "Finally stopped pretending?" I hissed, my voice low enough that only she could hear. "You've been poisoning me with lies and trying to kill me since the moment I returned to this pack. Don't think I'm going to let you." Grace's mask of sweetness vanished for a split second, revealing the cold calculation beneath. Then, with theatrical timing, she wrenched her arm free and let out a blood-curdled scream. "You're hurting me," she wailed, clutching her wrist to her chest. Her scream echoed through the yard, drawing the attention of every wolf in the vicinity. Several stepped forward, concern etched on their faces. "Grace, are you okay?" "What happened?" Before I could speak in my defense, the crowd parted, and Alexander emerged from the building. His tall figure loomed over the gathering, radiating alpha authority. His amber eyes locked first on me, then darted to Grace's trembling form. "Oh, what the hell is going on here?" he demanded, his voice carrying across the yard. Grace immediately rushed to his side, pressing herself against him as if seeking protection. It's okay. Scarlet's just in a bad mood," she whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I was just trying to make peace." Alexander's face darkened with fury. "Scarlet, are you insane?" he stormed, taking a step toward me. I didn't flinch. Instead, I rolled my eyes at his predictable reaction and sauntered forward, deliberately placing myself between him and Grace. "Your delicate Grace has decided to play the poor maiden as usual," I spat, out enough for our audience to hear. "If she is your destined mate, why don't you settle this political marriage right now and be done with it?" Alexander let out a low, warning growl, the kind that would make most wolves cower in submission. I stepped closer, deliberately unthreateningly invading his space. "You don't scare me, Alexander. Just looking at your hypocrisy makes me want to vomit." Gasps echoed around us. No one spoke to an alpha this way, especially not in public. "I refuse to let you continue to humiliate me or pretend I'm part of this farce," I continued, my voice dripping with condescension. "Hurry up and cuddle and comfort your lovely Grace." I turned on my heel and strode away, leaving chaos in my wake. Behind me, I could hear Grace's continued wails of distress and Alexander's furious shouts demanding I return immediately. I ignored them all, walking briskly to my car parked at the edge of the lot. My hands were shaking with rage as I yanked open the driver's door and slid inside. "That bitch hasn't changed at all," chorus snarled inside my head, still playing the victim while plotting behind everyone's backs. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. 3 years ago, Grace had orchestrated an attack by rogue wolves that left me with scars both physical and mental. Instead of punishing her, the Winter's pack had sent her to Europe to recover, leaving me to pick up the pieces. And now she was back, pregnant with Alexander's child, still playing the same games. I was about to start the engine when a familiar voice slid into my mind through the wolf link. "Scarlet, don't go. We need to talk." Sarah, my birth mother, who always chose Grace over me, even after discovering the truth about our birth, and as the only thing I had left of my hands, even after I was nearly killed by Grace. I gripped the steering wheel even tighter, ignoring the instinctive flutter I felt at hearing her voice, no matter how much I tried to harden my heart against her. Some small, pathetic part of me still yearned for her maternal affection. Talk about what? Luna's era. I mentally shot back, resentment clear in my tone. "Alexander? Are you returned, baby Grace?" Sarah's reply came smoothly. I came smoothly, her tone calm but with an undercurrent of steel. "Grace is sick. Scarlet, you don't understand what she's been through. She is very weak now, and in order to avoid any excitement for her, we think that the ceremony of the union of your mates with Alexander can be postponed." A harsh laugh escaped my lips. "Postpone?" I repeated aloud, though I knew Sarah could hear me through our link. For her again. The memory of Grace hurting me came flooding back with pain and clarity. I could still feel the phantom pain of the wound from 3 years ago, the day after Grace's friend had attacked me, and I could clearly feel the sensation of my own blood coming out in great sheets and soaking the ground beneath me. Back then you all kept asking me to forgive and forget, and promptly sent her off to Europe. I yelled into the mind link, not caring if my emotional outburst gave Sarah a headache. But you guys never cared about what I endured, what kind of damage I suffered. Do you know the desperation that comes when blood gushes out of your body in great swats? You have no idea, and you don't care. Scarlet, please. Sarah continued to plead. You must understand the situation. Grace is truly ill this time. The silver poisoning is affecting her ability to shift. She needs Alexander. In that case, I cut her off coldly. You guys just let her fulfill her engagement to Alexander and leave me out of it. With that final thought, I severed the mind link, slamming mental barriers into place with such force that I knew Sarah would feel the rejection physically. I slammed the steering wheel hard. Running away now would solve nothing. If I was going to break free from this toxic cycle once and for all, I needed to sever all ties completely. I clenched my fists as I got out of the car once more. My decision made. Today was the day I would end it all, starting with my so-called mate. Chapter 4, Burning Bridges. Scarlet's POV. I re-entered the courtyard of the pack house. The crowd had thinned out a bit, but the rest of them were in a tight circle, their attention focused on someone in the center. As I approached, the wolves parted, sensing my presence. The scene that greeted me was so theatrical. Alexander was half kneeling on the ground, cradling Grace in his arms. Her body was slumped dramatically against his chest, her platinum blonde hair artfully arranged around her pale face. She clutched at his shirt with one hand while the other pressed against her stomach. Jason, that was the only feeling I have left. Alexander's bada was shouting at the onlookers. Back to work, all of you. This isn't a spectacle. His voice carried the authority of his position, sending the lower-ranking pack members scurrying away. Grace's eyes, those pale blue pools of calculated innocence, locked onto mine the moment I came into view. In an instant, her expression transformed from pained to desperate. She reached out with trembling fingers, grasping the hem of my skirt. "Scarlet," she whispered, her voice paper thin. "Please, I know you're upset, but I'm not trying to come between you and Alexander." The audacity of her words made my blood boil. "I promise I won't interfere with your relationship." Grace continued, a single perfect tear sliding down her cheek. "I just need his help while I recover." Before I could respond to her ridiculous performance, Grace let out a sharp gasp. Her body convulsed, and she clutched her abdomen tightly, her face contorting in apparent agony. "It hurts," she whimpered, eyes wide with faux fear. "Your energy, it's attacking me." I hadn't moved a muscle, hadn't spoken a word, yet somehow, according to Grace. I was magically assaulting her from 2 feet away. Alexander reacted instantly, scooping Grace into his arms at a princess carry that made my stomach lurch with disgust. Her head rested against his chest, her eyes closed in pretend suffering. "Get her out of here," Alexander barked at Jason, who rushed forward. But Grace, despite her supposed agony, managed to cling to Alexander with surprising strength. A no was the only feeling I had left as my hand. "Alex, please," she murmured. "I need you." Alexander hesitated, torn between his duties as alpha and his obvious concern for Grace. The look of helpless devotion on his face was the final confirmation I needed. He had never looked at me that way, not once in our 2-year engagement. I turned away from the nauseating display. "I'm going to get my bag," I announced to no one in particular, heading back toward the building. "Scarlet, stand still," Alexander commanded, his alpha ability swirling through the air like a physical force. I felt it wash over me, completely ineffective. Without breaking stride, I continued walking. I said "Stop." His voice boomed louder this time, the full weight of his alpha command pressing down. Several nearby wolves dropped to their knees instinctively, but I simply kept walking. I heard Alexander's growl of frustration and the sound of his footsteps as he rushed after me, presumably after handing Grace to Jason. He caught up just as I reached the building entrance, his hand shooting out to grab my arm. I stepped neatly aside, avoiding his grasp. When I turned to face him, he flinched at whatever he saw in my eyes. "Don't touch me," I said quietly, each word clear and precise. "I reject any possibility of you becoming my mate." Shock registered on Alexander's face. Among wolves. Formal rejection of a potential mate was rare and significant. It severed not just emotional bonds but mystical ones as well. Pack customs dictated that once a formal rejection was issued, no further mating ceremony could ever take place between those individuals. "You can't do that," he sputtered, disbelief coloring his tone. "Our packs, we are completely finished." "Alexander," I interrupted calmly, "find another political solution." The finality in my voice seemed to freeze him in place. For perhaps the first time since I'd known him, Alexander Amber was speechless. I stepped around him and strode into the building, heading straight for my office. Behind me, I could hear Alexander calling my name, but I didn't look back. 5 minutes later, I drove away from the Amber Pack house, my few personal belongings tossed in the backseat of my car. Through my rearview mirror, I caught a glimpse of Alexander standing in the driveway, watching me leave. Good riddance. That was quite the exit. Cora purred inside my head as I drove, clearly amused by our behavior. "Did you see his face when you formally rejected him?" I couldn't help the smile that tugged at my lips. He looked like someone had slapped him with a frozen fish. My wolf laughed, the sound warm and comforting in my mind. "He deserves worse. Years of disrespect. And then cheating with that snake Grace." I nodded, feeling Cora's power surging through my muscles, making me feel stronger, more certain of my decision. "He's trying to track us through the pack bond," Cora observed, amusement coloring her thoughts. "Look how frustrated he is." Another gift of Cora's the ability to completely mask our location within the pack bond when needed. Alexander could search all he wanted. He wouldn't be able to sense where I was going. I tapped my fingers on the steering wheel. Grace must be making a big deal about all that damage right now. She thinks she needs an excuse to postpone our marking ceremony. But she doesn't realize that I press Alexander for this stupidity. Cora smiled broadly. Let her make herself anxious. The memory of Grace's innocent act made my hands tighten on the wheel. When we first met, I had a crush on her, but I didn't realize that underneath her friendly, naive exterior hid a vicious wolf. My trust allowed her to almost kill me 3 years ago. Instead of punishment, the pack had sent her to Europe to recover, while I spent months in the hospital fighting for my life. At least now we're free of both of them, I said aloud, trying to focus on the positive. Before I could catch my breath, Luna's voice invaded my mind through our pack link. "Come home immediately," my birth mother ordered, her tone brooking no argument. "We need to discuss your behavior." I grimaced at the intrusion. I should have expected this. "There's nothing to discuss," I replied curtly. "Don't be ridiculous." "Scarlet," Sarah continued, her voice softening in that manipulative way I'd come to recognize. Alexandra and Grace have history. Emotional attachments that can't be erased overnight. You need to understand. I laughed bitterly. The sound harsh even to my own ears. Understand what? How you protected her after she sent rogues to kill me. The memories came flooding back, lying in the sanitarium for 2 months. The searing pain of my wounds. The deeper agony of betrayal as my own family chose Grace over me yet again. Sarah's tones often further, aiming for maternal concern but missing by a mile. Grace was poisoned with silver in Europe. She suffered, which atones for her past mistakes. The marking ceremony can wait. My anger exploded all at once. Of course, I growled through the link, my mental voice sharp enough to cause feedback, postponing my marking, undermining my status. All for precious Grace, the same Grace who tried to get me killed, who isn't even your daughter. Baluna. I could feel Sarah's shock at my bluntness. I'll say it again. I continued before she could respond. I'm not going to mate with Alexander. Ever. The rejection is forlorn final. Without waiting for her response, I snapped the connection, having Cora completely block all my links. The sudden silence in my head was blissful. I pulled over at the border of Winter's territory, needing a moment to collect myself. The adrenaline from the confrontations was beginning to wear off, leaving me tired and oddly empty. A cold clarity enveloped me as I stared out at the landscape. I didn't want to be a pawn in their games anymore. I didn't want to fight for Sarah's motherly affection that had never been mine and never would be. No matter what I did. Sarah doesn't love me. She never did, even after learning I was her biological daughter. She had continued to favor Grace. The admission hurt, but there was also liberation in finally accepting the truth. I reached for my phone and dialed Emma's number. She answered on the first ring, concern evident in her voice. Scarlett, are you okay? I heard there was a scene at the Amber Pack House. I snorted. News travels fast. Are you all right? She pressed. I formally rejected Alexander as my mate. I said, the words still feeling strange on my tongue. There was a brief silence. Then Emma whispered, holy shit, you actually did it. I did. And now I need a drink. Wanna meet me at the Silver Moon? Emma didn't hesitate. I'll be there in 20. First round's on me. I smiled for what felt like the first time that day. Make it a double. I started the car again and headed toward the neutral zone. Chapter 5 Aftermath. Scarlett's POV. The neon sign of the Silver Moon Tavern flickered as I pulled into the parking lot. Located in the neutral zone between territories, this place was frequented by wolves from different packs who wanted to conduct business or escape their alpha's watchful eyes for a while. Perfect for someone who had just formally rejected Herfy Inc. and publicly humiliated him in front of his pack. I spotted Emma immediately as I walked through the entrance. Emma had heard her hair pulled back in a messy bun, her keen eyes scanning the crowd. When she caught sight of me, her expression morphed from concern to surprise. Scarlett. She rushed over, embracing me tightly before pulling back to examine me. You look completely fine? I shrugged. Why wouldn't I be? Emma's eyes widened as they fixed on my beige coat. Is that blood? I glanced down casually at the small red spatter on my sleeve. I hadn't even noticed it during my dramatic exit. I guess it is. I ran my finger over the stain. Not mine though. Not yours. Emma's voice rose an octave. Then whose is it? I gave her a small, satisfied smile. Probably Grace's. Or Alexander's. Things got a bit physical on my way out. Emma's jaw dropped. You physically confronted the alpha heir and his pregnant mistress? Are you insane? Possibly. I couldn't help the smirk that formed on my lips. You should have seen Alexander's face when I formally rejected him. Emma stared at me for a long moment before breaking into incredulous laughter. I can't believe you actually did it. Her eyes sparkled with admiration. I thought I'd find you crying into your wine glass. But here you are looking like you just won the lottery. I ran a hand through my hair. I feel like I did. Finally free of that arrogant ass and his scheming sister. Emma shook her head. Still reeling from my surprising demeanor. I have to say, you really surprised me. My dear, you know Alexander isn't just any wolf. He's the alpha heir. And Grace. We all know what she's capable of. The memory of Grace's orchestrated attack 3 years ago flashed through my mind. The searing pain of silver-tipped claws tearing through my flesh. The burning agony as poison seeped into my veins. They don't scare me anymore, I said firmly, pushing the memories away. Emma squeezed my arm. Good. It's about time someone stood up to them. She glanced around the busy tavern. Let's skip the small talk and get to our table. I'm starving, and I'm guessing you could use a drink. Make it a double. I agreed, following her through the crowded room. The silver moon was packed tonight, filled with wolves from various packs mingling together. A few heads turned as we passed, whispers following in our wake. News traveled fast in the wolf community. We settled into a corner booth, far enough from other patrons to have a private conversation. Emma flagged down a waitress and ordered us both whiskeys and steaks. A medium rare for me, I specified. When our meals arrived, I found myself struggling with the tough cut of meat. My knife scraped against the plate as I attempted to slice through the overcooked steak. This is ridiculous, I muttered, setting down my utensils in frustration. I prefer rabbit anyway. Something I can tear into with my teeth. Emma chuckled. I'll take you to my favorite rabbit roast next time. Sorry about this place, your message was so urgent I didn't have time to make reservations anywhere better. It's fine. I took a long sip of whiskey, savoring the burn as it slid down my throat. The alcohol makes up for the disappointing food. Emma leaned forward, lowering her voice. So is the only feeling. What's your next move? Alexander isn't going to let this go easily. I didn't hesitate. I'm going to officially cancel the marking ceremony. I want you to spread the word to all the packs. Emma nearly choked on her drink. You're serious? Did the Winter Pack and Amber Pack agree to this? I smiled coldly. I don't need their agreement. The decision is mine. Scarlet. Emma's voice held a note of warning. This isn't just about you and Alexander. This is about politics between two major packs. I shrugged, unconcerned. Then they can find another political solution. I'm done being their bargaining chip. Emma sat back, studying me with newfound respect. You've changed. A year ago, you wouldn't have dared defy both packs like this. She was right. For years, I had been desperately seeking approval, especially from my birth parents who had chosen Grace over me even after discovering the truth about our switched identities. I've wasted enough time trying to be what they wanted, I said, my voice hardening. Look where they got me engaged to a man who cheated on me with my adopted sister. The same woman who tried to have me killed. Emma nodded slowly. I remember when they first arranged the mating. Her words transported me back to that time, after Grace orchestrated the rogue attack that nearly killed me. There had been a brief moment when it seemed justice might prevail. Alexander had appeared to take my side, condemning Grace's actions. I had been so pathetically grateful for his support that I'd agreed when the Winter Pack suggested a mating bond between us. The alliance would strengthen both packs, they said. It would stabilize my position within the Winter Pack, they promised. What a fool I'd been. Alexander never meant to see Grace punished, I said bitterly. He was playing politics, making sure the arrangement went through while protecting her at the same time. Emma's expression darkened with anger. That defaced bastard. I never trusted him. Well, now he can have Grace with my blessing, I replied, draining my glass. They deserve each other. Emma hesitated, then asked carefully, why did you go along with it for so long? Scarlet, you even participated in the preparations for the marking ceremony. The question struck deep. I couldn't tell Emma the real reason how desperately lonely I'd been after leaving Roman and my adoptive mother. How I craved belonging and acceptance from my birth family, even knowing they would never truly love me as they loved Grace. Instead, I deflected. It doesn't matter now. What matters is ending this farce completely. Emma nodded, accepting my non-answer. What can I do to help? Post about Alexander and Grace's visit to the hospital on the pack forums, I said. Make it clear they were there for a gynecological appointment, not for silver poisoning treatment. Emma's eyes lit up with mischievous determination. Consider it done. She pulled out her phone and began typing rapidly. As an apprentice back healer, Emma had credibility within the medical community, combined with her popularity among younger pack members. Her posts on the forums would spread like wildfire. I'm not just posting about their hospital visit, she informed me, fingers flying across the screen. I'm also announcing your decision to cancel the marking ceremony. I smiled approvingly. Perfect. Within 30 minutes, Emma had created a detailed post, complete with the exact time Alexander and Grace had visited the OBGYN. She even mentioned how they'd been discussing pregnancy symptoms with the doctor. And, posted, she said triumphantly, almost immediately. Her phone began buzzing with notifications. "Well, it's blowing up," Emma said, scrolling through the responses. People are shocked but not that surprised, if that makes sense. Apparently, there have been rumors about Alexander and Grace for months. Of course there have been. I scoffed. They were probably sleeping together the entire time I was planning the marking ceremony. My phone suddenly vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out to see Alexander's name flashing on the screen. I showed it to Emma, who raised her eyebrows. "That was fast," I answered, putting the phone on speaker so Emma could hear. "What do you want, Alexander?" I asked coldly. "What the fuck do you think you're doing?" His voice thundered to the speaker, loud enough to make nearby patrons turn their heads. "Speaking publicly about my decision," I replied calmly. "Is there a problem?" "You had no right," he began. But I cut him off. "I had every right. I formally rejected you as my mate. The marking ceremony is cancelled." His breathing became heavy, a sure sign he was struggling to control his temper. "You're making a serious mistake, Scarlett. If you think you can humiliate me like this, I already have," I interrupted again. "And there's nothing you can do about it." Alexander's voice dropped to a dangerous growl. "If you don't come home right now and fix this mess, I'll kick your apartment door down and trash the place myself." Emma's eyes widened at the threat, but I remained unfazed. "Try it," I challenged. "Give me one more reason to file a formal complaint against you with the Pack Council." There was a moment of stunned silence before Alexander exploded. "This isn't over. Scarlett, you think you can just walk away? I will destroy everything you care about." I hung up without responding and turned to Emma. Who looked both shocked and impressed. "Well," she said, raising her glass in a toast, "here's to burning bridges spectacularly." I clinked my glass against hers. "To new beginnings," I replied. Chapter 6, Sever Ties. Scarlett's POV. My phone vibrated against the table for what felt like the 100th time in the past hour. Emma glanced at the screen and rolled her eyes. "Another unknown number," she said, sliding the device toward me. "That's the 8th one. Luna's era must be getting desperate." I watched the phone buzz with tired disinterest. This was Sarah's favorite tactic, having various pack members call me when I refused to answer her directly. "Just turn the damn thing off," Emma suggested, taking a sip of her third whiskey. "They'll get the message eventually." "You know what? You're right." I grabbed the phone and powered it down with a satisfying press. The silence felt like a luxury after hours of incessant ringing. "To peace and quiet," I said, raising my glass. "Should we get the check?" Emma asked, signaling to our waitress. I nodded, reaching for my purse. "This one's on me. You've been a lifesaver today." The waitress brought our bill, and I pulled out my card linked to my winter pack account. It was a formality more than anything else. Each pack member had an account tied to their position, managed by the Alpha or Luna. I handed over my card and waited. The waitress returned moments later with an apologetic expression. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Your card has been declined." I raised an eyebrow, pulling out my phone and turning it back on. Sure enough, a notification appeared immediately. "Your pack account has been frozen. Contact Luna's era for details." Emma's face flushed with anger. "Are you kidding me? They froze your account." I slipped the phone back into my pocket with a shrug. "Not the first time. That's ridiculous. You're a pack member, their biological daughter. For Moon's sake." Emma's voice rose slightly, drawing attention from nearby tables. "And they have the nerve to freeze your funds while Grace, who doesn't even have real pack blood, probably has unlimited access." "It's fine," I said, keeping my voice level. "It's not fine," Emma insisted, already pulling out her own card. "I'll cover this, and I can transfer some funds from my Healing Apprentice savings if you need. Don't worry about it." I cut her off gently. "I have my own resources." Emma looked skeptical as she handed her card to the waitress. "What resources?" "Everything you had was tied to either the Winter Pack or Alexander's connections, wasn't it?" I allowed a small, secretive smile to play at my lips. "Not everything. You're going to have to explain this." Emma said an hour later, standing in the middle of an exclusive boutique in the neutral territory, after paying for a meal at the tavern. I'd suggested we go shopping partly to celebrate my newfound freedom, partly to prove a point. I ran my fingers over a silk blouse that probably cost more than most wools made in a week. Explain what? Emma gestured wildly at our surroundings, a high-end shop that catered exclusively to the wolf elite. This? How can you afford to shop here when your pack account is frozen? I smiled and pulled the blouse off the rack, adding it to the growing pile in my arms. I told you I have my own resources, I replied, examining a pair of designer jeans. Emma crossed her arms. You're being deliberately cryptic. Maybe I just enjoy the mystery, I teased. We continued shopping, with Emma begrudgingly selecting a few items for herself after I insisted. When we approached the counter, the pile of clothes, accessories, and even some rare herbal supplies for my collection had grown impressively large. The saleswoman tallied our purchases, her eyes widening at the final amount. That will be $7. $842, ma'am. Emma choked slightly beside me. I reached into my purse and pulled out a sleek black card that bore no pack insignia. The saleswoman's eyes brightened at recognition. Of course, Miss Winters. Right away, she processed the transaction without hesitation, handling the unmarked card with noticeable respect. Emma stared at me, her jaw slack. What was that? I slipped the card back into my purse as the saleswoman arranged our purchases in elegant shopping bags. Just a card. That's not just a card. That's not just a card, Emma whispered as we collected our bags. That's a black card. They don't give those to just anyone. And they certainly don't come from pack accounts. I shrugged, enjoying her confusion. Like I said, I have my own resources. Once outside the boutique, Emma stopped me with a hand on my arm. Seriously, Scarlett, where did that card come from? Did Alexander give it to you as part of your main arrangement? Alexander? I nearly laughed at the absurdity. Absolutely not. Then who? Emma pressed. Who would give you that kind of financial freedom? Something must have changed in my expression because Emma's eyes widened with realization. Oh my goddess. It's from someone else, isn't it? Someone important too. I actually didn't notice I was holding the card at first, but as the memory surfaced I felt my face involuntarily soften. The look on Roman's face that day when he gave me the card was the only thing I'd been thinking about all these years. It doesn't matter, I said, pushing the memory away and forcing lightness into my tone. What matters is that Luna's Aura's little power play failed spectacularly. Anna clearly wanted to press further, but she recognized my deflection for what it was. Instead, she hefted her shopping bags with a grin. Oh well, I can't argue with the results. This is the most expensive outfit I've ever owned. We parted ways shortly after, with Emma heading back to the Winters territory with promises to keep me updated on any pack gossip. I approached my apartment building in the neutral territory with arms loaded with shopping bags. This place had been my sanctuary for the past year, neither in Winters nor Amber territory, but a space that was truly mine. As I rounded the corner to my door, a familiar scent hit my nostrils seconds before I spotted him. Alexander stood leaning against my doorframe, arms crossed over his broad chest. His amber eyes flashed with irritation when he saw me. Finally, he growled, pushing away from the wall. I've been waiting for 2 hours. I raised an eyebrow, continuing toward my door at the same unhurried pace. How unfortunate for you. His gaze dropped to my shopping bags, a sneer forming on his handsome face. Shopping? Really? The entire pack has been trying to reach you, and you've been buying clothes. You seemed busy with Grace. I replied coolly. I didn't want to interrupt your precious time together. Alexander stepped closer, his tall frame blocking my path to the door. Why did you turn off your cell phone? Why did you block the mind link? I met his gaze steadily. It was too loud. I wanted some peace and quiet. His jaw tightened with frustration. This isn't a game, Scarlett. There are consequences to your actions today. Speaking of actions, I said, looking pointedly at my door. Didn't you say you were going to trash my apartment? Why haven't you gone in yet? Alexander's nostrils flared with anger. I was giving you the courtesy of facing me first, but clearly, you're too insensitive to appreciate that. I laughed, the sound deliberately mocking. How considerate of you. Tell me, do you extend the same courtesy to Grace? Or did you rush straight to her side earlier? My words hit their mark. Alexander's anger visibly rose, his control slipping as Mason, his wolf, pushed to the surface. His eyes flashed with alpha power. "We need to have a serious conversation about our arrangement," he said, his voice dropping to that commanding tone he used with his subordinates. "The pack alliance. There is no arrangement anymore." I cut him off. "I rejected you publicly. Or did you forget that part?" I moved to step around him and reach my door, but his hand shot out, gripping my wrist with punishing force. His touch sent a wave of alpha authority through my skin, a power that would have brought most wolves to their knees. But not me. Never me. I looked down at his hand, then up at his face. My voice dropped to an icy whisper. "Remove your hand, or I'll remove it for you. You're being unreasonable," he snarled. "This affects both our packs. You can't just..." I didn't let him finish. Cora's strength flowed through me, and I broke his grip with ease, surprising him with my strength. His eyes widened slightly. He'd always underestimated me physically. When he positioned himself to block my doorway, my patience evaporated completely. With precision born from years of training, I delivered a swift, targeted kick between his legs. Alexander doubled over instantly, a strangled sound escaping his throat. Before he could recover, my hand transformed, wolf claws extending as I slashed across his neck just deep enough to make my point without causing permanent damage. He stumbled back, hand flying to the wound. It wasn't lethal. Werewolf healing would take care of it within minutes, but the message was clear. I unlocked my door and stepped inside, but Alexander, stubborn as ever, followed me in uninvited. His healing had already stopped the bleeding, though his face remained pale with shock and anger. "What the hell are you?" Alexander asked, frustration evident in his voice. "No wolf can resist an alpha command like you do. No female should have this kind of strength. Perhaps you never really knew me at all," I replied coldly. Alexander's face twisted with fury and a hint of something else there. "Perhaps. You're wild. Uncontrolled. This is why you're unworthy of being my Luna." He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a cruel whisper. "No man would ever want you as a mate again. Not after today." His words revealed his growing inability to control or intimidate me the way he did with the rest of the pack. And that, more than anything, terrified him.
Dear, the first 6 free trial chapters of this book are over. Do you like it? If you enjoy this book, please support the author's work by clicking the link below and buy it on Amazon Kindle. Have a nice day. See you in the next video.